That night, at the palace banquet, I was drugged. When I came to, my virtue had been destroyed, and impossibly, a child had taken root in my womb. Me stepmother wore a mask of righteous grief. To preserve the Shen family's reputation, she had me cast out, like refuse to an abandoned estate on the outskirts of the capital. I clawed my way through survival in that god-forsaken place and barely lived to birth a son. 4 years later, me half-sister Shen Qingwan, the girl I'd once cherished, like a treasure burst into that hovel and strangled me with a length of white silk, crushing my windpipe. She found my son, Ayan's crying irritating, a living, breathing child, and she personally poisoned him into permanent silence. The moment my soul left my body, I watched helplessly as she scooped Ayan into her arms and carried him to the heavily guarded Prince Yong's manor. I hovered frantically in midair, desperate to scream, to intervene, but could only pass through their bodies like smoke. Then I saw Prince Yonghua, Jingshan's face, and the world shattered around me. Ayan's features were carved from the same mold as this fearsome prince's, identical in every detail. So the man who'd ruined me that night was the Prince Yong himself. And Shen Qingwan was using this very fact as her bargaining chip, claiming she'd been the woman from that encounter. Riding on motherhood, draped in wedding finery that stretched for miles, she trampled over mine and Ayan's flesh and blood to marry gloriously into the prince's household. But her triumph was short-lived. The day her own pregnancy was confirmed, she stood by the lake, face twisted with malice, and shoved her useful tool, my Ayan, into the icy waters with her own hands. Deepest winter water like knives. She stood on the bank wearing a cruel smile, eyes locked on that small, struggling figure in the water. A mute bastard from heaven knows where, thinking he can claim the position of eldest son and compete with the treasure in my belly. My dear sister, open your eyes wide and watch. The title of the capital's first lady is mine. The princess consort's seat is mine. Watching you fall from grace, scuttling about like a sewer rat, the taste is truly exquisite. Ha, you'll never guess whose handiwork it was that you lost your virtue at that banquet, will you? Truth cut through me like 1,000 blades. I released a desperate, anguished cry, hatred flooding every particle of my being, weeping tears of blood. When I opened my eyes again, the stench of decay filled my nostrils, and crows shrieked mournfully outside. I'd returned to that lightless hovel, to Ayan's 4th year. Shen Qingwan stood before me, eyes rimmed red as a startled rabbit is. Seeing me skeletal, barely distinguishable from a corpse, she let 2 streams of tears fall in a display of tender heartbreak. Elder sister, you've suffered so quick. Let me take you both away. My fingers clenched so tightly beneath my sleeve that my nails bit into flesh. Only this kept me from unleashing the murderous fury threatening to consume me. In my previous life, I'd been completely taken in by her compassionate act, believing she was a merciful bodhisattva come to rescue me from hell. Back at the Shen Manor, she'd always been this gentle and considerate, unwilling to step on so much as an ant. Everyone praised Second Miss for her kindness. When I'd lost my virtue, Father had raised his sword to beat me to death. It was she who knelt in the rain, weeping as she begged father and stepmother for mercy, which earned me banishment to the estate, instead preserving this worthless life. During 4 years of torment at that place, not one member of the Shen family inquired after me. Only she deigned to visit occasionally. Each time she touched the thick calluses on my palms or saw the scars covering my body, she'd weep piteously, overcome with emotion. I'd believed this was sisterly devotion, so I'd opened my heart to her completely, never once on guard. That is why when she pulled that murderous silk cord from her sleeve and looped it round my throat, I hadn't even managed to resist. But now, reborn, I caught the flash of deathly white peeking from her sleeve. I lunged toward her suddenly, voice choking. Sister, in this world, you are the only one left who cares what becomes of me. She stiffened, clearly not expecting such a fervent reaction. I buried my face against her shoulder, cracking my parched lips into a smile, not missing the flicker of revulsion and murderous intent crossing her features. Before she could collect herself, before her hand fully reached her sleeve, I moved with startling speed, snatching the white silk she'd prepared and whipping it round her delicate throat. The tables turned in an instant, her face transformed from pious compassion through shock to abject terror. Elder sister, you. She clawed desperately at the silk, eyes bulging. The old woman standing guard outside seemed to hear something amiss and called through the door. Second miss, do you require anything? Ice filled my eyes as my fingers tightened further, the silk cutting deep into her flesh. She opened and closed her mouth like a dying fish, but I'd throttled her past making any sound. 4 years in that hovel hadn't only taught me forbearance. Chopping wood, hauling water, washing clothes, tilling fields, what heavy labor hadn't I done? These hands had grown formidably strong. This pampered young lady whose fingers had never touched spring water couldn't possibly match a demon crawled up from hell itself. Seeing her gaze dart desperately toward the window, eyes full of pleading, I curved my lips and dropped my voice to mimic her usual honeyed tones, calling out, "Nothing's wrong. We sisters are catching up. No one is to enter." Shen Qingwen's eyes flew wide with horror at the realization. I leaned close to her ear, voice a demonic whisper. "What surprises you, sister? We used to eat and sleep together, so close we practically wore the same clothes. Everyone in the manor said we were like sisters from the same mold, didn't they? Never mind the voice. Even our figures and silhouettes were nearly identical. In my past life, she'd used this similar appearance and voice to convince Prince Yong, a man notoriously indifferent to women, that she'd been the woman from that night. I watched her quietly as that once pretty face gradually turned purple and blue as despair bloomed and her pupils began to lose focus. Just as she teetered on the edge of suffocation, I suddenly released my grip and struck the back of her neck with a sharp blow. She collapsed like a rag doll. Kill her. Too easy. Too merciful. Losing one's virtue by accident, carrying an illegitimate child, reputation destroyed. For 4 years, I'd contemplated death every waking moment. I'd tried starving myself, attempted hanging, even thrown myself at those frigid walls. But looking at myself bloodied on death's threshold, I couldn't help thinking, I, Shen Murao, had learned propriety at 3, poetry at 5. I was learned, well-read, filial, and proper a celebrated talent throughout the capital. I was merely a victim of conspiracy, my innocence stolen. What had I done wrong? Did I truly deserve to die? Later, as my belly swelled day by day, until that fragile infant arrived squalling into the world, I thought, the child is innocent. If I died, what would become of Ayan? Unable to die, unable to truly live. For exactly 1,460 days and nights, we'd been like rats that couldn't bear daylight, imprisoned within 4 walls, despised by servants, tormented by shrewish matrons, existing each day in anguish. So dying is hardly difficult. What is difficult is bearing humiliation while clawing for survival in the mire. He stripped off my coarse hemp clothing, without expression, and peeled away her brocade silks, switching our garments, destroying my virtue, taking my life, harming my flesh and blood. Each transgression, every crime, I would reclaim them all from her hide, with interest. Shen Qingwen, I'll personally strip away everything you treasure. The power you crave, the status you covet, the position you long for, I'll take it all. Ayan and I will live openly before the world this time, earning universal respect. And you. I looked down at the unconscious Shen Qingwan, enunciating each word through blood-stained teeth. Will find death preferable to life, rotting in the mud. Judgment seat interaction, darlings. Are you gnashing your teeth yet? Ready to smash your keyboards? But I must tell you, this is merely the appetizer. Shen Qingwan, this surface bodhisattva with her utterly depraved heart, is most maddening with that. It is all for your own good expression, but patience. I promised she wouldn't die easily. What follows will have her tasting earthly suffering, step by step, unable to live yet. Unable to die, ready, the satisfaction of vengeance has only just begun. Tree shadows swayed outside the window, figures flickering past. I knew I couldn't delay. I turned and hurried to the shabby wooden bed, waking the sleeping Ayan. He slept fitfully, small brow furrowed tight as if gripped by nightmares. His little hands flailed at empty air, unconscious whimpers escaping as he desperately pushed at some phantom threat. Behind me, the door creaked open. Second miss, has this little bastard been troublesome, disturbing your peace? That poisonous old woman poked her head in. My heart lurched. I quickly pulled Ayan into my arms, turning my back to the door to shield his face with my body. Ayan, wake up! Open your eyes. Small body in my embrace shuddered violently. He blinked groggily, then seeing my face clearly, tears suddenly cascaded like broken pearls. Mother, that voice carried immense terror and the startled joy of something lost and found. I held him tighter, whispering soothingly, not a sound, be good. He was remarkably obedient, burying his face in my embrace, little hands clutching my garment with surprising strength. The old woman walked straight past me and reached toward the figure on the bed bound and covered with a tattered quilt checking beneath the nose. Oh, still breathing, not dead. I inclined my head slightly, took out a handkerchief to cover my nose, and turned sideways, affecting disgust at the room's stench. It is handled. Let's go. Reaching the doorway, the old woman fawningly presented a hunched, yellow-toothed man. Second miss, the stable hand you requested has been waiting outside, shall we? I glanced up at this repulsive, reeking man, my eyes cold enough to freeze. This was the gift Shen Qingwan had prepared for me. In my previous life, she'd had this stable hand defile me, ensuring I found no peace even in death. Since she'd personally arranged this fine performance, she might as well taste it herself. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat and said coldly, "As I instructed before, do as you were told. But remember this, keep her alive. Don't accidentally kill her with your fun." The old woman and stable hand exchanged glances, their faces splitting into lascivious grins as they repeatedly agreed. Second miss can rest assured. We'll play, but we know the rules. Same as always, just leave the bitch breathing. My eyes darkened. I didn't want to spend another moment in this place. I gripped Ayan's icy little hand tightly and walked out without looking back. Night pressed down, wind cutting like blades. Wearing Shen Qingwan's finery and veiled hat, leading Ayan, I climbed effortlessly into the Shen family's understated but luxurious carriage. Even Jue, the maid who'd served Shen Qingwan since childhood, noticed nothing amiss. Her voice bubbled with excitement at finally turning fortunes around. "Miss, shall we go directly to Prince Yong's manor? When the prince sees young master, he'll surely be delighted." I sat upright in the carriage, eyes closed, meditating. Softly I said, "Number to Yongning Temple." Jue started, voice hesitant. "But Miss, Madam specifically instructed that you must go immediately to the manor to acknowledge kinship." I snapped my eyes open, voice sharp through the carriage curtain. "Are you the mistress or am I? You dare contradict me." Shen Qingwan played the gentle, virtuous lady before others, but treated servants with vicious beatings and abuse. Jua was terrified of her a secret I'd only discovered as a ghost. Sure enough, cowed by my rebuke, she flinched and dared say no more, quickly ordering the driver to redirect toward Yongning Temple. Only when the carriage wheels began rolling did I release a long breath, gripping Ayan's hand tightly. In my previous life, Shen Qingwan had indeed taken the child straight to Prince Yong's manor. Prince Yonghuo, Jingshan. What manner of man was he? The emperor's only blood brother, commanding tens of thousands of elite cavalry, overseeing the 9 gates, wielding power that shook the court. The emperor's most trusted right hand. Rumor painted him as unfathomably calculating, emotions never showing, methods swift and merciless as lightning. No woman had ever appeared at his side. Some even whispered he preferred men. Thus, at nearly 28, he remained childless, compared to the emperor's abundant offspring. Prince Yong's household was pitifully sparse. So when Shen Qingwan appeared at his gates carrying the poisoned mute Ayan, Huo Jingshan's perpetually frozen expression had flickered with rare bewilderment. Ayan's face demanded acknowledgement. Anyone would declare him Huo Jingshan's mirror image. They were undoubtedly father and son. Shen Qingwan had counted on precisely this, daring to create a city-wide spectacle at Prince Yong's gates, until everyone knew. To preserve imperial dignity, Huo Jingshan had been forced to take her into his household, though this deepened his disgust for her calculating nature. Later, his willingness to grant her status and marry her had hinged on one crucial figure: the Empress Dowager. Tonight, the Empress Dowager would face assassins at Yongning Temple and suffer grave injury. And in my past life, Shen Qingwan had somehow learnt of this and brought Ayan to the temple. She'd tended the Empress Dowager day and night with devoted care, never once changing from her clothes. The Empress Dowager, moved by such filial piety and pitying Ayan's disability, his muteness had decreed she should become Prince Yong's secondary consort. For a family of mere 5th-rank officials, even a secondary consort's position was reaching for the heavens. Moreover, as Huo Jingshan never established a principal consort, Shen Qingwan had essentially reigned supreme in Prince Yong's household, flourishing magnificently. My purpose in going to Yongning Temple now was to intercept this windfall fortune and rescue the Empress Dowager first. Tending beside a sickbed might earn favorable regard, but nothing compared to the profound gratitude of saving a life. I needed the Empress Dowager to owe me this tremendous debt. I needed her to discover Ayan's face through serendipity and uncover this secret herself. I needed her to personally acknowledge Ayan, rather than having me grasp at connections. I needed her to become my most solid backing. I needed to secure for myself and Ayan a proper path forward, bathed in light. Dawn broke at the horizon, soft and hazy. The carriage finally stopped at the mountain's foot. Jue's respectful voice came from outside. "Miss, we've arrived at Yongning Temple." I straightened my garments, secured my veiled hat, and led Ayan from the carriage. As Jua moved to follow and attend me, I paused, saying coldly, "You needn't follow. Return to the Shen Manor and deliver a message to father and mother." Zue blinked, bewildered. "Miss this," I interrupted, lips curving with meaning. "Tell them to bring out their finest treasures and prepare a proper dowry. The Shen family's daughter is about to marry gloriously into Prince Yong's household." Today, the Empress Dowager would burn incense and pray at Yongning Temple. The temple had long been sealed, accepting no outside visitors. In my previous life, Shen Qingwan and Ayan had already revealed themselves to Huo Jingshan, brazenly entering Yongning Temple under the prince's authority. Now, with our identities unestablished, we could only take the treacherous back path up the mountain, racing to infiltrate the temple before nightfall. The mountain track proved arduous and overgrown with brambles. Despite my utmost care protecting Ayan, sharp grass blades still left several bloody scratches across his body and face. He was only 4 years old, yet he made no sound, didn't cry. He simply gripped my hand tightly, following me step by determined step. Watching his heartbreakingly sensible demeanor, my chest tightened with indescribable anguish. Truth was, I hadn't been good to him from the moment he was born. I'd instinctively rejected him, unwilling to show affection. Back then, his very existence felt shameful, constantly reminding me that I was unchaste, damaged goods. I'd hated the man who ruined me, and by extension, hated this child who destroyed my life. I'd let him cry, let him wail. I wouldn't hold him, wouldn't accept him, observed coldly. But hearts are made of flesh, after all. He was so tiny, crying until his voice went hoarse, face scarlet with effort. Yet no one responded, just as when I'd knelt in the rain begging for help, and no one had responded to me. Eventually I'd tried holding him, occasionally attempting clumsy comfort. But I'd never been like ordinary mothers, eyes and heart filled entirely with their child. I'd simply given him food, given him clothes. I'd simply done more work, hoping he might suffer slightly less than I had. Over time, he'd actually learned to read faces. The estate was perpetually short of food and clothing, meals erratic. He'd learned to eat less, or claim he wasn't hungry, pushing that half-rancid bun toward me. He constantly tried to take the heavy water buckets from my hands. The words he spoke most often were, "Mother, I am not hungry. Mother, I am not hurt. Mother, I am not tired." He was mere years old, yet frighteningly clever. He could sense I didn't favor him, never daring to seek closeness or ask to be held. I rarely held him either, not until after death, watching him struggle in that lake, did regret consume me. I'd lamented heaven's injustice, but how had he deserved any of it? Born into that sunless place, imprisoned with me, enduring endless contempt later, brought to Prince Yong's manor by Shen Qingwan. He'd enjoyed no comfort there either, suffering 2 more years before his wretched end. His entire life, he'd never known a single truly good day. Mother, it doesn't hurt, truly. A warm little hand gently touched my cheek, wiping away the tears at the corners of my eyes. I jolted back to awareness and crushed him to me, tears flowing freely. Mother promises you these bitter days are nearly over. The setting sun gradually sank, red as blood. We navigated through the mountain forest, managing just before nightfall to squeeze through a hidden gap in the back wall. Entering the temple grounds, I found the surroundings eerily quiet, the air thick with an inexplicable sense of wrongness. As I struggled to recall the precise location of the Empress Dowager's attack from my previous life, Ayan's small hand suddenly gripped mine urgently, and he ran directly toward the right. His sense of direction proved better than mine. Through a deep, narrow passage, the view opened abruptly. Before us, flames soared skyward amidst shouts of battle. In the distance, guards surrounded a magnificently dressed matron in tight formation, none other than the Empress Dowager. A black-clad assassin broke through the defensive line, blade raised, charging straight for the Empress Dowager. Me heart seized. Without thinking, I shoved Ayan into nearby bushes. Hide. Don't come out under any circumstances. I myself ran toward the Empress Dowager, as if possessed, heedless of danger. I wasn't truly courting death. I clearly remembered that in my previous life, though the Empress Dowager faced assassination, she'd sustained only minor scratches, no threat to her life. I was gambling on this. I reckoned if I simply intercepted that blow for the Empress Dowager, suffering some superficial injury, the debt would be firmly established. Who could have anticipated that just as the assassin's blade was about to strike me, a tiny figure would burst from the bushes with startling speed? Me vision went red with horror, heart nearly stopping. Ayan. I swept one arm around his shoulder, pulling him against me, trying to shield him with my body. Slash, the sound of steel tearing fabric rang out piercingly. The blade carved through his arm. Blood instantly welled, staining his ill-fitting garment crimson. Seeing his attack foiled by two vagrants appearing from nowhere, murderous fury twisted the assassin's features. He flicked his wrist and thrust toward me again. I couldn't evade. My body jerked as searing pain lanced through my chest. Ayan's formerly clear eyes, now stretched wide with terror, tears streaming to mix with the blood on his face. Mother, my legs buckled, vision swimming with darkness. Hazily, I seemed to see the Empress Dowager stumbling forward, gathering Ayan into her arms, face full of shocked uncertainty. The resemblance too uncanny. You and Jingshan, how can you look identical? Good child, quickly tell me. Whose child are you? My vision blurred further. The sounds of slaughter grew distant and chaotic. Only Ayan's crying pierced through, sharp enough to rupture my eardrums. Mother, wake up. I don't want you to die again. No, I frowned. In that final moment before consciousness scattered, my heart gave a violent lurch. Again, so my Ayan he'd returned too. When I next opened my eyes, 2 days had passed. I beheld bright yellow bed curtains, the air perfumed with subtle dragon's saliva incense. The Empress Dowager had secretly brought Ayan and me into the palace. I struggled upright. The wound in my chest sent tearing pain through me. Ayan was collapsed beside the bed, his arm wrapped in thick bandages, eyes swollen red as walnuts. Seeing me wake, he cried out with joy. Mother, you are finally awake. Ignoring the pain, I pulled his hand close for careful examination. Confirming his injury was only superficial, I finally breathed easier. The Empress Dowager hurried in at the sound, gripping my hand with heartfelt relief, almost agitated. Good girl, Buddha be praised. You've finally woken. She glanced at Ayan nestled obediently beside me, her tone growing urgent. Child, you must tell me, what relationship do you have with Prince Yongquo Jingshan? I moistened my cracked, peeling lips, eyes flickering as I affected bewildered panic. This commoner knows not what Her Majesty means. I am Shen Mirao, daughter of Ministry of Rights, Vice Minister Shen Wengshuan. 5 years ago at the palace banquet, I mistakenly drank wine and lost consciousness. My voice grew increasingly choked, tears falling on cue. When I woke, my virtue was already destroyed. It was too dark that night to see the scoundrel's identity clearly. Returning home, I discovered I carried an illegitimate child. My parents felt I'd disgraced the family and imprisoned me at an estate for 5 full years. Ayan and I endured torment from servants there, half-starved, barely surviving. We finally escaped under cover of night because we simply couldn't go on. Ayan, displaying remarkable perception, suddenly dropped to his knees with a thud. Those eyes, so like Huo, Jingshan's brimmed with tears as he gazed up at the Empress Dowager pitifully. Grandmother, please, kind grandmother, don't send us back. If we go back, that evil woman will beat Mother and me to death. I pressed my lips together, chest aching. In my previous life, Ayan had been stubbornly proud, never so readily showing vulnerability or begging for mercy. I'd guessed correctly. He too had returned with his memories intact. This child was helping me perform. The Empress Dowager's heart visibly melted. She pulled Ayan into her embrace, eyes moistening as she murmured, 5 years ago. It all fits. The timing all matches. Suddenly her eyes brightened with euphoric realization, slapping her thigh. That is it. Absolutely right. This is Jingshan's blood. This is my own grandson. Good children, don't be afraid. With me here, who would dare send you back? Who would dare touch a hair on your heads? After the Empress Dowager confirmed Ayan's identity, events unfolded as in my previous life. She immediately moved to decree I should become Prince Yong's secondary consort. However, this time I didn't eagerly accept with thanks as Shen Qingwan had. Because of my intervention, the Empress Dowager hadn't been gravely injured. Prince Yong hadn't rushed to Yongning Temple for the rescue. Instead, he'd gone directly on imperial orders to investigate the conspiracy behind the assassins. He still knew nothing of mine and Ayan's existence. If the Empress Dowager forced the issue now, pushing me into Prince Yong's household, a man of Huo Jingshan's pride would surely think me calculating and opportunistic, breeding only dislike. This wasn't what I wanted. Moreover, I refused to squander the life-risking favor I'd earned on a mere marriage arrangement. I had far grander designs. I struggled to rise and knelt before the Empress Dowager, words earnest, gaze steady. Though marriages are arranged by parents and matchmakers, Murao knows Her Majesty pities us orphaned mother and son, wishing to grant us status. But Prince Yong isn't currently in the capital. Ayan and I have never formally met His Highness. Such an abrupt betrothal decree might only displease the prince. Perhaps we should wait until His Highness returns and let him decide. The Empress Dowager considered this briefly, perhaps recalling her son's notoriously stubborn temperament. Forcing the issue might actually harm this mother and child. Seeing my measured composure, approval flickered in her eyes as she nodded. You've endured such suffering yet remain so sensible and tactful. Very well, as you wish. Thereafter, Yan and I settled peacefully into the Empress Dowager's signing palace, to prevent wagging tongues outside. The Empress Dowager sealed off information about our identities. To the world, I was merely a farmer's adopted daughter who'd risked her life saving the Empress Dowager. As for Ayan, the Empress Dowager claimed she'd brought back an exceptionally endearing young novice from Yongning Temple to keep her company. But the more one tries concealing something, the more curiosity it provokes. Fortunately, all attention fixed on me. The Empress Dowager's signing palace had always been quiet, yet now rang with laughter day and night, naturally provoking jealous scrutiny. After all, aside from the Emperor and Prince Yong, no one enjoyed such honor residing at Signing Palace. Thus rumors flew inside and outside the palace that the Empress Dowager had taken a new adopted daughter, keeping her close day and night for careful grooming, preparing her to enrich the Emperor's harem. This gossip sent every palace concubine into defensive panic, each finding excuses to pay respects at Signing Palace, ostensibly to pay respects actually to spy and glimpse this mysterious figure. I'd been celebrated as a capital beauty before my disgrace. Though worn by 5 years' hardship at that estate, I'd gained a fragile, morbid beauty. Having taken a blade for the Empress Dowager, I remained unhealed. My entire form was slender and delicate, swaying like willows in wind, each step like lotus blooms. I habitually wore no cosmetics, face pale as alabaster, lips barely colored. From a distance, I truly possessed an otherworldly, ethereal quality that inspired protective instincts. The Emperor's harem boasted concubines both vivaciously beautiful, charmingly adorable, and gracefully dignified. Yet none matched my particular brand of pitiable fragility. Thus every concubine's crisis alarms went off. Some even rushed to the Empress, whispering poison in her ear, that I was a seductive fox spirit. But the Emperor and Empress knew the truth of mine, and Ayan's real identities. The Empress, thoroughly annoyed by these women's constant jealous visits, deliberately let slip some information. With a cryptic smile she'd said, "Why such anxiety? Our Emperor's harem already overflows with 3,000 beauties, Her Majesty the Empress Dowager's concerns lie with another who remains unwed. This comment sparked collective enlightenment. Who else would the Empress Dowager so painstakingly arrange a marriage for besides the Emperor? Only that perpetually bachelor Prince Yong. Who was Prince Yong? The white moonlight in every capital lady's heart. An unattainable deity, noble, aloof, cold, and self-contained, militarily triumphant, and some farmer's daughter of unknown origins thought herself worthy. Opinion shifted dramatically. Rumors grew more vicious, tinged with mockery. Everyone gossiped that the country girl who'd lucked into saving the Empress Dowager was attempting to transform into a phoenix. Heard the news, that rural bumpkin actually dreams of marrying Prince Yong as his consort. Summonon should hold up a mirror for her talk about a toad lusting after swan meat. These words naturally reached Huo Jingshen's ears upon his return to report. When Huo Jingshen entered the palace, he happened to overhear several young maids gossiping in a corner. He was furious. He despised manipulation above all else, particularly this brand of leveraging gratitude for gain. He strode into Signing Palace radiating, barely contained rage and killing intent. About to erupt, he collided head-on with someone. The figure was light as a feather, tumbling straight into his embrace. Her frame felt boneless and soft, carrying faint medicinal fragrance mingled with distinctly feminine sweetness. Jingshen's brow furrowed. He instinctively moved to push her away. But lowering his gaze, he guessed this stranger's identity. So this was the woman who, having saved his mother's life, now shamelessly aspired to become Princess Yong. Beauty meant nothing, merely another greedy, calculating creature. He'd grown up in the imperial family. He'd seen countless such women. This collision was obviously a honey trap maneuver designed to seduce him. Very well, he'd oblige her. Today he'd let Mother see with her own eyes what sort of shameless creature this sensible and proper saviour truly was. His lips curved in mocking coldness. The hand that had been pushing away instead lightly circled her waist, pressing that slender form intimately against him. When did Mother's palace acquire such a lovely beauty? What is this? A surprised mother prepared for this son. Pressed against his chest, hearing that frivolous, humiliating tone at my ear, I froze completely. This was the legendary woman spurning, ruthlessly cold Prince Yong, rather different from expectations. Before I could react, the Empress Dowager's cheerful laughter sounded from outside. Far from releasing me, Huo Jingshen's lips quirked, as if enjoying some private joke, pulling me even tighter as though to merge me into bone and blood. The next moment, the door flew open forcefully. Huo Jingshen opened his mouth to continue his teasing, but his gaze fell on the small boy holding the Empress Dowager's hand. The playful smile froze on his face, cracking inch by inch. The Empress Dowager beamed, patting Ayan's little hand gently. Good, Ayan. Go on, address your father. Ayan raised his head, gazing at this tall man before him. Something flickered in his eyes, a shy longing as he called out softly, Father. This crisp, father struck like thunder from clear skies. Huo Jingshen's pupils contracted violently, locked in disbelief on that face. The Empress Dowager, observing her son's dumbfounded expression, teased with a glance at us, still embracing. Seems introductions are unnecessary. Seeing how perfectly matched you two are, so reluctant to part, my mind is at ease. The hand at my waist released abruptly, as if scalded. Huo Jingshen quickly shed his mocking demeanor, retreating half a step, voice cold as ice shards, perfectly matched. The Empress Dowager's eyes crinkled like crescents, smile uncontainable. Precisely. I still remember 5 years ago when you went half mad searching the palace for some maid, turning every corner upside down without finding her. I thought my iron tree had finally bloomed, but it turns out my fingers clenched tight within my sleeves. So he'd searched for me. In my previous life, I'd died, never knowing that after that night, he hadn't dismissed it as a spring dream. He'd genuinely looked for me. The Empress Dowager took Ayan's hand, then mine, placing them together. The woman from that night was none other than the Shen family's hidden eldest daughter, Shen Murao, also Ayan's birth mother. Huo Jingshen's brow furrowed deeply. Those unfathomable eyes darkened inscrutably. He stared hard at Ayan's face for a long moment, then turned toward me, gaze sharp as blades, as if to dissect and see through me entirely. The room's atmosphere instantly grew oppressively heavy. The Empress Dowager, being astute, tactfully excused herself with Ayan to fetch sweets. Inside, only Huo Jingshen and I remained in confrontation, risking your life to save the Empress Dowager, employing injury to enter the palace. Miss Shen's schemes run deep. His tone was unkind, dripping with unconcealed mockery, seeing straight through my machinations in a glance. My lashes trembled slightly. I didn't deny it. I'd known his mind was labyrinthine and calculating, certainly not the sort swayed by beauty alone. In my previous life, Shen Qingwan had deceived him extensively with endless lies. Though he'd married her for the child's sake, he'd remained perpetually suspicious, investigating her background repeatedly. While he'd uncovered no concrete evidence ultimately, seeds of doubt had been sown. After marriage, he'd kept her at arm's length. One might even say neglected her. Later, when Shen Qingwan stooped to drugging him with aphrodisiacs to secure his favor, his disgust toward her had reached its zenith. Had she not conceived again later, he'd likely have killed her already. He detested being deceived. Honesty was my sole card. I drew a deep breath, meeting his oppressively intense gaze. Your Highness speaks correctly. I do have my own calculations. Huo Jingshen's lips curved with a light, scoffing laugh and, as I suspected, expression. A bitter smile tugged at my lips, voice trembling. 5 years ago, at the palace banquet, I inexplicably lost my virtue. 10 months later, I bore Ayan alone at that estate. Mother and son were imprisoned in that dilapidated place for 5 full years, enduring endless torment, never seeing daylight. We barely escaped with our lives. I'd originally planned to take Ayan back to the Shen Manor to seek father's protection. Huo Jingshen continued watching me coldly, without interrupting, though his rigidly set features seemed to soften fractionally as my narrative continued. I forced down the bitter ache rising in my throat. Continuing, passing Yongning Temple, we were penniless, hoping to beg a vegetarian meal when we happened upon assassins attacking. Murao asks herself honestly, had it been anyone else in danger, I would have taken Ayan and hidden far away to preserve him. I'd never have dared intervene. I did calculate deliberately. My lost virtue and destroyed reputation made me a stain, something shameful hidden from light. But hearing people cry, "Protect Her Majesty," and "Empress Dowager," I knew this was my only chance. I gambled with my life. If I could save the Empress Dowager, even dying, I might secure through this debt a thread of survival for my son Ayan within the imperial family, sparing him further abuse. I also deliberately exploited the Empress Dowager's pity for us mother and son, managing temporary palace residence. But your Highness doesn't know the world has no place for us orphaned mother and child. Outside these palace walls we have nowhere to go, can only be slaughtered at will. I begged the Empress Dowager to let us remain in the palace, merely seeking sanctuary. Here, my eyes stung unbearably. Gazing at Huo Jingshen, moisture gathered, but I stubbornly refused to let tears fall. Now, he lowered his gaze, studying me, emotions churning darkly in his eyes, expression unreadable. Now what? I moistened my lips, voice barely audible yet firm. Now that your Highness has seen him, Ayan should acknowledge his ancestry, no longer remaining a fatherless bastard. His Adam's apple bobbed, His eyes took on a calculating edge. "You want this prince to marry you?" I clenched my fingers so tightly nails nearly pierced flesh. Murao knows her lowly status, her ruined reputation, and dares not aspire to the princess consort's position. "I only request a place beside your highness, even nameless and unacknowledged. I only ask your highness allow me to borrow your influence for revenge." His gaze sharpened, seemingly struck by these final two words. Revenge. My eyes blinked. What had been soft and vulnerable now glinted with bone-deep coldness. 5 years ago, when I lost my virtue, it wasn't accidental my stepmother and half-sister conspired together. These 5 years of imprisonment and torment were also their doing. His look held new depth, reassessing me as if seeing me for the first time. "What benefit does helping you bring this prince?" This was a transaction. I responded respectfully, laying out my prepared bargaining chips. "Helping Murao provides the Empress Dowager a satisfactory resolution, sparing Her Majesty from daily nagging about your highness's marriage. Moreover, with all this favor surrounding me, I can shield your highness from countless simpering women both inside and outside the manor. And should your highness someday meet someone you truly cherish and wish me gone, I'll leave without the slightest entanglement, requesting divorce myself." I was gambling. Gambling he wasn't as heartless as rumored. Since he'd once taken pains searching for me, that night hadn't been entirely forgotten at minimum. He felt some pity for me. He was 28, powerful yet unmarried. At every family banquet and palace gathering, the Empress Dowager cornered him about viewing prospective brides, while capital ladies circled like vultures ready to pounce. He found it insufferable first. His proud nature resented being coerced. Second, his heart already harbored an unmentionable summon and special. In my previous life as a ghost, I drifted through Prince Yong's manor. I'd personally witnessed him sitting alone in his study night after night until dawn, gazing at a portrait of a woman, expression bereft and yearning. That painted woman possessed graceful curves and elegant posture, strongly reminiscent of that night's passion. Unfortunately, the portrait showed no face, only a tantalizing silhouette, impossible to determine which family's young lady. And what you see is that silhouette ball, 7 parts resemblance to me. I lowered my eyes, enduring his burning scrutiny, without another word. Say too much and stop at the crucial point. Today my words were half truth, half fabrication, reality and fiction interwoven. Huo Jingshan, suspicious as Cao himself, would certainly dispatch investigators to verify everything I'd claimed. Apart from my rebirth, which couldn't be proven, my life-risking rescue of the Empress Dowager was undeniable fact, witnessed by all. Mine and Iron's 5 years of suffering at that estate were genuine and verifiable, evidence abundant. I only hoped his people moved swiftly. Judgment seat interaction, the real battle of wits dealing with someone as shrewd as Huo Jingshan. The last thing he respects is a greedy, grasping woman. Our heroine does the opposite, proactively offering to step aside when the time comes. This tactical retreat is absolutely brilliant. What follows will show Shen Qingwan and her poisonous mother exactly what it means when they say, "You reap what you sow, and no one can save you from your own sins." Establishing me as secondary consort, Huo Jingshan neither agreed immediately nor flatly refused. Instead, he studied me deeply once before leaving the palace that very night. Sensing the moment ripe, I knew lingering would seem calculated. Next morning, I requested leave from the Empress Dowager. I am grateful for Her Majesty's affection these days, but we ultimately lack proper status. Having imposed on the palace over long, gossip inside and outside might damage your Majesty's reputation. Moreover, we've been away too long. Iron and I should return to the Shen Manor. Certain old debts need settling. The Empress Dowager regarded me thoughtfully, seeming to penetrate my intent without exposing it. You are a spirited child. Rest assured you saved my life and bore Ayan. I won't let you mother and son suffer the slightest injustice. Seeing my determination, the Empress Dowager finally sighed. Very well. Returning home has merit. The Shen Manor remains your natal family, after all. Only remember, if the Shen family cannot accommodate you mother and son, Signing Palace's doors remain forever open. Tears in my eyes, I kowtowed deeply. Taking Ayan's hand, under the palace servants' complex gazes, I departed this sanctuary that had sheltered us for over a month. The carriage rolled slowly toward the Shen Manor, wheels crushing fallen leaves. Ayan gripped my hand tightly, trembling slightly, palm slick with nervous sweat. Mother, must we really go back? His voice was mosquito soft, carrying obvious tremors, a flicker of unconcealed terror in his eyes. The shadows of his previous life ran too deep. After Shen Qingwan brought him to the Shen Manor, stepmother had played the loving matriarch publicly, while privately pinching him, starving him, taking sadistic pleasure. Shen Qingwan beat and berated him at will, venting bad moods on him, calling him bastard, mute, debt collector. My heart bled. I pulled his small frame into my embrace, soothing gently. Ayan, don't be afraid. This time is different. We have the Empress Dowager's support now. Your father knows of your existence too. They wouldn't dare bully us again, even with 100 times the courage. But Ayan raised his small face, large eyes full of unease. That wicked woman, is she still at the estate? My eyes darkened abruptly, glinting with bloodthirsty coldness. The night we left the estate, I'd specifically instructed that perverted stable hand to proceed as usual. Given his methods, Shen Qingwan must have endured inhuman torment. Later, I'd sent people to investigate discreetly, learning she'd been tortured beyond recognition, half mad, yet forcibly kept breathing, unable to live, unable to die. She is still there, I said softly, voice cold as hell itself, living like rotting mud, waiting for us to return. The carriage finally stopped before the Shen Manor's vermilion gates. The gatekeepers saw us descend from a palace carriage and froze as if seeing ghosts. Then they scrambled inside in terror to report, "Master, madam, the eldest miss has returned." Shortly after, the Shen Manor's central gates swung wide. Father Shen Wengshuan and stepmother Wang emerged in disarray, rushing out. "Mirao, how? Why are you back?" Father's expression was complex, shocked by my luxurious attire, eyes holding both astonishment and barely perceptible guilt and calculation. Stepmother Wang's face went deathly pale, as if she'd been viciously slapped. She forced out a smile uglier than weeping, voice shrill. "Good child, it really is you, these years. You've suffered so." Watching their supremely hypocritical faces, I laughed coldly within. In my previous life, after being sent back defiled, Father had considered me a disgrace, tarnishing his reputation, producing a white silk cord to strangle me. Shen Qingwan's false pleading had changed this to confinement at the estate to fend for myself. And Wang, the mastermind behind my ruin, now performed maternal compassion. I curtsied gracefully, deportment impeccable. This daughter has been unfilial, causing father and mother such worry these years. Wang hurried forward, attempting to grasp my hand in a show of affection. I sidestepped. Leaving her grasping air, she awkwardly withdrew her hand, gaze falling on Ayan beside me. The next second, her pupils contracted violently, as if seeing a demon. Ayan's face resembled Huo Jingshan far too closely. Anyon, who'd seen Prince Yong's true countenance, couldn't mistake it. This is... Wang's voice trembled, her pointing finger shaking. "My son, Shen Yan," I introduced calmly. Voice level, yet every word clear. Also Prince Yong's biological flesh and blood. Boomshen Wengshuan reeled, as if thunderstruck, staggering back 2 steps, steadying himself against the doorframe. Prince Yong. He stared incredulously between Ayan and me, lips quivering. That night's man was actually Prince Yong. I inclined my head slightly. Expression bland, the Empress Dowager personally confirmed it. There can be no mistake. Shen Wengshuan's face shifted through a spectrum of emotions, from shock to doubt, finally transforming into uncontainable ecstasy. Excellent, wonderful, marvelous. My daughter is blessed. What tremendous fortune. The Shen family is blessed. If they could attach themselves to Prince Yong's towering tree, the Shen family's prestige would soar beyond measure. Wang, however, looked deathly, swaying on her feet, forcing out, truly, truly magnificent news. Quickly, come inside. Don't stand in this draughty entrance. That evening, the Shen Manor hung lanterns and prepared a celebratory banquet. I coldly declined, citing physical discomfort and travel fatigue. Deep night, moon dark, wind high. I went alone to the Shen Manor's gloomy ancestral hall, kneeling before my birth mother's dust-covered memorial tablet. Candlelight flickered, illuminating my face in shifting shadows. Mother, your daughter has returned with your grandson. I gently stroked that icy tablet, fingers tracing each character. Rest assured those who murdered you then, who conspired to destroy my virtue. Every monster in this manor, your daughter will spare none. Just then, extremely soft footsteps sounded behind me. A familiar, trembling voice echoed through the empty hall. Elder sister truly has 9 lives. Using such methods, you actually turn the tables. What impressive skills. I whirled abruptly, my gaze colliding with the huddled figure in the doorway. It was Shen Qingwan's personal maid, Juer. Her look at me held something like a bottomless dry well complex. Indecipherable, Juer. I rose slowly, knees stiff from prolonged kneeling. She seemed to summon tremendous resolve, taking several steps into the hall and shoving the heavy wooden door shut behind her. Thud. Her knees crashed heavily onto the stone flags, the sound echoing through the empty space. Eldest miss, this servant deserves death. I've wronged you, my brow arched. By dim candlelight I examined her. What do you mean by this? Juer prostrated herself, shoulders heaving violently, tears quickly pooling on the floor. 5 years ago, that drugged wine at the palace banquet. Second miss forced me to administer it. The air seemed to freeze. She choked out each word as if tearing it from her throat. This servant truly didn't know it was that sort of vile aphrodisiac. Second miss only told me it would make you break out in a rash, embarrassing yourself at the banquet by losing composure. I genuinely didn't know it would cost you your virtue. I remained silent, merely watching her steadily. I see. Seeing my silence, Jua grew more frantic, babbling like beans tumbling from bamboo. Later, when master confined you to the estate, to fend for yourself, though second miss visited you with apparent sisterly devotion, returning home she'd fly into terrible rages. She cursed you as damaged goods, said you were still putting on airs as eldest miss, despite your state. Even called young Master Ayan, a bastard from who knows where. The day before going to the estate, I personally overheard Madam and second miss scheming. They said Prince Yong remains childless. If they could adopt a child, seeing Ayan's features resembled Prince Yong somewhat, they conceived vicious intentions. If they eliminated you and brought Ayan to claim kinship, they might climb the high branch of Prince Yong's household. Here, Jua trembled violently, as if recalling something terrifying. Second miss had me secretly prepare 3 feet of white silk. She said, as long as you lived, you'd remain a hidden danger that might explode at any moment. So better to have me end myself in shame, settling everything once and for all. I coldly finished her sentence. Joie was already sobbing uncontrollably. This servant tried desperately to dissuade her, but second, Miss threatened that if I breathed a word, she'd have someone break my brother's legs. Eldest miss, I too was forced into this corner. Listening to these belated truths, the ice around my heart froze thicker still. All the tangled mysteries from my previous life finally connected with crystalline clarity along this thread. Stepmother Wang had envied my mother's position as principal wife. First she conspired to murder my mother, then fearing I'd block her biological daughter Shen Qingwan's path, she drugged me at the palace banquet, destroying my virtue and prospects. And Shen Qingwan, that false white lotus, had smoothly capitalized on this, feigning pleas for mercy to preserve my life, while actually imprisoning me at the estate. When the time ripened, she'd planned to murder the mother and steal the son, treading on my corpse to impersonate me and marry into the prince's household. Excellent. Truly an interlocking, watertight chain of poisonous schemes. Joie, I bent down, grasping her elbow to lift her up. What use is crying? I leaned close to her ear, voice soft yet chilling. If you truly wish atonement, help me with something. This game I would personally overturn it. 3 days later, circumstances shifted dramatically. A gilt-edged visiting card arrived at the Shen Manor Prince Yonghuo. Jingshan would personally call. The entire Shen household entered crisis mode. Atmosphere oppressively tense. Stepmother Wang lost all composure, smashing several beloved Famille Rose teacups in succession. Murao dear, she said, barely masking her panic, forcing a stiff smile onto that well-maintained face. Do you suppose Prince Yong's sudden visit concerns that marriage matter? I lifted my teacup, gently blowing away the floating leaves, regarding her with an ambiguous smile. What does mother think? Wang laughed dryly, eyes darting. Naturally, it is good fortune. Only that wretched Qingwan has vanished to who knows where. At such a crucial moment she is nowhere to be found, truly. Isn't second sister recuperating at the suburban estate? I affected surprise, setting down my cup with a clear clink of porcelain on porcelain. What mother didn't know? Wang's expression transformed, going pale as death. The estate. When did she go there? I said nothing more, merely sipped my tea, concealing the cold smile at my lips. Just then the steward stumbled in, voice distorted. Master, madam. Prince Yong has arrived. In the front hall, the atmosphere was suffocatingly oppressive. Huo Jingshan wore black brocade robes, woven with gold thread, jade belt at his waist, hands clasped behind his back as he stood in the hall's center. His bearing was upright as pine, yet his entire presence radiated an unapproachable, cutting coldness. Father Shen Wengshuan performed trembling obeisances, forehead already beading with nervous perspiration. Huo Jingshan didn't even raise an eyelid, tone indifferent. Vice Minister Shen needn't stand on ceremony. This prince comes today, not for official business, but private matters. Before he'd finished speaking, those eagle-sharp eyes cut through the crowd, landing precisely on me. Miss Shen, a word in private, the garden pavilion. No one about. Huo Jingshan dismissed all attendants, cutting straight to the point without preamble. This prince investigated. Your words were truthful. He extracted a thick sheaf of papers from his sleeve, passing them to me. Papers rustled, like an accusation against the Shen family's crimes. Densely written records detailed how Wang had bribed palace servants to administer drugs, how Shen Qingwan had earnestly pleaded with father to confine me to the estate to preserve family reputation. Even the brutal servants at that estate, how they'd withheld my food and clothing, how they tormented us mother and son, all investigated with perfect clarity. The estate's head matron couldn't withstand interrogation, and confessed everything. She claimed she acted on Shen Qingwan's orders, monthly bringing different men to service, you as humiliation. Huo Jingshan's voice seemed wrapped in ice, chilling to the spine. She also testified that Shen Qingwan specifically instructed, "Just keep you breathing. Don't let you die." I gripped those papers so tightly my nails embedded in my palm, the pain keeping me lucid. Though I'd anticipated this, seeing such blood-soaked evidence laid bare still made breathing nearly impossible, my chest aching. This prince has already delivered that matron to the court of judicial review for lawful punishment. Huo Jingshan watched me quietly, his gaze somehow probing. As for Shen Qingwan, she is still alive. I snapped my head up, cutting him off, eyes filled with nothing but deathly hatred, at the estate, in a state worse than death. Huo Jingshan's brow rose fractionally, seemingly somewhat surprised. Your heart is rather ruthless. Compared to 5 years of torment they inflicted on me. What is this? I met his eyes directly, neither yielding nor retreating. Your Highness didn't go to such lengths merely to inform me of this. Surely? He fell silent briefly, gaze turning toward the pond outside the pavilion, observing those withered lotus leaves. The Empress Dowager wishes you to enter the household, and your Highness's own thoughts. Huo Jingshan turned, approaching me a step, looking down from his superior height. This prince can grant you status, but on one condition. Your Highness, please speak. Prince Yong's household keeps no idle ornaments. His tone grew stern and pragmatic. I require you to become a true Princess Yong, not merely decorative. The manor's domestic management, social exchanges with prominent families, even certain turbulent situations, you must handle them competently, independently. My heart jolted sharply. He meant to cultivate me. Why? I asked, puzzled. With your Highness's power, you could easily select a princess from distinguished lineage who'd prove more capable. Why choose me? Whoa. Jingshan's voice grew somewhat ethereal, as if seeing someone else through me. Because Aya needs a mother, and you need a foothold. Mutual need, mutual benefit. Isn't that so? Moreover, he suddenly turned back, eyes flickering with emotions I couldn't read. You are intelligent and sufficiently ruthless. Prince Yong's household currently requires precisely someone like you. I understood. Prince Yong's household was a towering tree attracting wind. Huo Jingshan wielded tremendous power, countless eyes watching from shadows. He didn't need a delicate hothouse flower, but an ally who could stabilize the inner household, and, when necessary, steel herself to draw the blade. And I, for Ayan's sake, for revenge, would willingly become that blade. Agreed. My answer was decisive. I accept. Huo Jingshan nodded, seeming satisfied with my astuteness. In 3 days, the imperial edict will arrive at the Shen Manor, secondary consort's position, temporarily residing in the principal quarters. I started slightly. The principal quarters. But that is the principal consort's residence. This violates propriety. This prince's rules are the rules. His tone was casual yet radiated unquestionable dominance. When someday you can fully discharge a princess consort's duties, this prince will naturally elevate your position. With that, he stepped forward to leave, then paused, half turning to ask, regarding the estate situation, do you require this prince's assistance? I shook my head, lips curving with icy coldness. Unnecessary, I'll go personally. Huo Jingshan studied me deeply. As you wish. 3 days later, the imperial edict arrived at the Shen Manor, as promised. Shen Murao was decreed Prince Yong's secondary consort to enter the household in 3 days. The Shen household rejoiced as if the previous scandal had never occurred. Only stepmother Wang wore a smile more pained than tears. The night before entering the household, moon dark, wind high. I brought Ayan back to that nightmare estate. The place remained dilapidated and desolate, cold wind howling. Seeing me now richly dressed and refined in bearing, the guarding matron dropped to her knees like a dog begging for mercy. "Where is she?" I asked coldly. The matron pointed with trembling hand toward a reeking woodshed. Pushing open the door, a nauseating stench assaulted me. In the dim corner, Shen Qingwan, huddled in rags, filthy, eyes vacant as a dead fish's, hearing the sound. She mechanically turned her head. When her gaze met mine, those previously scattered pupils suddenly contracted. "Ah!" She opened her mouth, hoarse, broken sounds emerging from her throat like a strangled duck. I approached slowly, looking down at this once arrogant sister. Jua had said that after I left that night, the enraged stable hand and several crude farmhands had serviced her in turns all night long. Afterward, she'd gone mad, biting anyone she saw. The estate people found her troublesome and chained her like a dog in this woodshed, daily tossing in spoiled scraps. Shen Qingwan, I softly called her name. "Do you know who I am?" Her eyes widened. Suddenly, she lunged forward frantically, only to be viciously jerked back by the heavy iron chains at her feet, crashing face first to the ground. "Looking at you now, you've probably forgotten even your own identity." I crouched down, meeting those muddy eyes directly. "Then I'll tell you, I am Shen Marao, the elder sister you and Wang conspired to defile, whom you personally strangled to death." Shen Qingwan's entire body shook violently, as if she'd seen a ghost, shaking her head frantically. "Oh, and there is Ayan." I beckoned to Ayan hiding by the door. "Look, this is your son, about to acknowledge his ancestry, and I am about to become Prince Yong's secondary consort." "Aha!" Shen Qingwan released a piercing shriek, desperately trying to lunge and bite me, only to be repeatedly yanked back by the chains, dragging bloody trails across the ground. I stood, brushing at non-existent dust on my skirt, saying coldly, "Rest assured, I won't kill you. Death would be too merciful. I'll keep you alive to personally witness your vicious mother's downfall, watch the Shen family grovel, like lapdogs to curry my favor. Watch me ascend step by step to the princess consort's position. You just stay here and recuperate nicely." Leaving the estate, night wind cut like knives. Anne gripped my hand tightly, asking quietly, "Mother, will she die?" I touched his head, gazing into the heavy darkness. "Ayan, remember sometimes living is far more painful than dying." 3 days later, Prince Yong's bridal sedan arrived at the gates. No 10-mile wedding procession, no grand ceremony, everything simple. But all the capital knew one thing. Prince Yong, disregarding worldly judgment, had married the Shen family's defiled eldest daughter and acknowledged that 4-year-old illegitimate son. On the wedding night, red candles blazed high. Huo Jingshan lifted my veil, passing me a cup of nuptial wine. "Have you done your homework on the prince's household situation?" he asked. I accepted the cup, nodding. "Your Highness commands the 9 gates and supervises the Forbidden Army, the Emperor's most trusted confidant, yet also the court's most envied target. Current court factions split 3 ways. One faction fiercely loyal to your Highness, another led by the Prime Minister in perpetual opposition, and a third comprising opportunistic fence-sitters." Appreciation flickered in Huo Jingshan's eyes. "Correct. Seems I chose well. Tomorrow, when entering the palace for formal thanks, the Empress will certainly make difficulties for you. Because the Prime Minister is the Empress's birth father. You are remarkably astute." Huo Jingshan drained his cup in one draught. "Sleep early. Tomorrow brings hard battles." With that, he walked straight to the bed and lay down fully clothed, a clear boundary between us. I knew this marriage was merely pragmatic convenience for him. Between us lay too many secrets and interests, but I wasn't impatient. The future stretched long. This chess game had only just begun. Next day, entering the palace, events unfolded exactly as Huo Jingshan predicted. The empress, under the guise of paying respects, smiled without warmth while finding endless fault. The secondary consort Shen saved the Empress Dowager's life. Her background does carry flaws. Having spent so many years at a rural estate, she has likely forgotten numerous palace protocols, hasn't she? The Empress's tone was gentle, yet every word carried barbs, each phrase piercing the heart. I stood with lowered head, respectful yet composed. This consort is slow-witted. Henceforth I must beg Her Majesty's guidance. Guidance hardly merits mention, the Empress said, covering her smile with her hand. I merely remind you that Prince Yong's household is extraordinary. Having entered it, you must watch your words and actions carefully, lest you embarrass His Highness. This consort takes it to heart. The Empress Dowager finally couldn't bear more. Speaking mildly, Murao is a child I personally approved. Her character is admirable. The Empress need not worry excessively. The Empress's expression stiffened. She could only awkwardly take her leave. Outside the palace gates, Huo Jingshan offered rare praise, well handled advancing and retreating appropriately. Inside the carriage, the atmosphere felt somewhat stifling. After long hesitation, I finally asked the question that had troubled me. Your Highness, this consort has one matter unclear, speak. Why did you expend such effort searching for that knight's woman years ago? Huo Jingshan remained silent for a long while. Just as I thought he wouldn't answer, his low voice sounded, because that night this prince was also drugged. I looked up, startled. Someone attempted to engineer a situation between this prince and some high-born lady. By mischance, it was you and I instead. He paused, seemingly recalling that night. When this prince woke next morning, you'd already vanished. Only a jade hairpin remained on the pillow. Speaking thus, he withdrew from his breast pocket a white jade hairpin, passing it to me. I reached out, fingertips touching that warm, smooth jade. My heart clenched. This was my mother's bequest, lost during that panicked escape. I'd never imagined he'd found and kept it all these years. These years this prince searched for the owner using this hairpin. Huo Jingshan gazed at the hairpin, eyes complex. Never expected it would be you. I looked at the hairpin in my hand, emotions churning. So in my previous life, Shen Qingwan had deceived him not only through our physical resemblance, but by somehow stealing this hairpin to pose as me. Your Highness, I gripped the hairpin, gathering courage to ask, if that night's woman hadn't been me, would you still have married? Huo Jingshan regarded me, gaze profound as the sea. Number. Why, because you wouldn't be her. He looked away toward the window. Moreover, this prince requires someone who can stand shoulder to shoulder weathering storms, not a weak woman who only weeps and seeks shelter. My heart stirred. I wanted to probe further, but the carriage had already stopped smoothly at the manor gates. Days passed, I gradually found firm footing at the manor. Huo Jingshan kept his word, transferring complete domestic authority to me. I deployed methods honed through previous life suffering, swift and decisive, rewards and punishments clear. Within 3 months, I'd reorganized the manor from top to bottom. Even several presumptuous old stewards dared show no further disrespect. Court rumors began, though Prince Yong's secondary consort came from humble origins. She was formidably capable, managing Prince Yong's household like an iron bastion. One day, stepmother Wang, long absent, suddenly called. In barely half a year, she seemed to have aged a decade, white hair streaking her temples. Seeing me, her former arrogance had utterly vanished, replaced with servile groveling as she knelt. Secondary consort, I've come to beg you to save the Shen family. Save the master. I unhurriedly skimmed tea foam with the lid, not raising my head. What has befallen the Shen family? Wang wept copiously. The master's been impeached by censors for alleged embezzlement, bribery, and allowing relatives to oppress commoners. He has been suspended from office pending investigation, thrown into prison. My lady, you are now Prince Yong's secondary consort. One word from you and His Highness could surely save the Shen family. I set down my cup, porcelain base meeting the table with a soft sound. Mother speaks incorrectly. His Highness has always enforced laws impartially, upright and incorruptible. How could he compromise public duty for private concerns? Wang's face went white, voice shrill. Murao, I know you resent me, but the master is your biological father. Can you bear watching him imprisoned, exiled thousands of miles? If father is innocent, naturally nothing will happen. My tone was bland. If guilty, he deserves punishment. The law cannot accommodate him. Wang finally abandoned pretense, tearing off her mask to shriek. Shen Murao, don't forget you also bear the Shen surname. If the Shen family falls, do you think you can remain unscathed? Without natal family support, what are you in the prince's household? I smiled at her foolishness and naivety. Does mother know whose man impeached father? Wang froze, mouth agape, speechless. His Highness personally arranged it. I rose, looking down at her. As for why, mother should understand better than anyone. Drugged wine from 5 years ago at that palace banquet, plus these years of suffering I endured at the estate, must I enumerate every detail to remind you? Wang reeled as if thunderstruck, collapsing to the floor, eyes full of despair. Simonon, show the guest out. I turned away, not sparing her another glance. 3 days later, Shen Wengshuan was stripped of office and exiled to bitter frontier lands. Wang, implicated in my birth mother's murder, with evidence irrefutable, was imprisoned to await autumn execution. The once prominent Shen family collapsed with a thunderous crash. When news arrived, I was in the study teaching Ian calligraphy. Ian raised his head, clear eyes regarding me. Mother, were grandfather and grandmother wicked people? I touched his head, saying gently, some people wear human skin, appearing as family, yet are actually wolves. Is father a good person? Ayan asked again. My brush tip paused, ink bleeding a dark blot on the paper. These past 6 months, though Huo Jingshan maintained distance, he treated me with respect. He frequently tested my abilities managing political and domestic affairs, occasionally offering guidance teacher and friend combined. Toward Ayan, though strict, he patiently taught riding, archery and scholarship, fulfilling a father's duties. Father is a good person, I said softly. Only what? I couldn't articulate. Late at night passing the study, I often saw Huo Jingshan transfixed before a portrait. The tenderness and anguish in his eyes, I'd never witnessed such depths. He harbored someone in his heart. And I was merely a useful chess piece he required. Ayan's birth mother and nothing more. This suited me fine. Mutual need without obligation actually felt liberating. Autumn yielded to winter. Another year turned. At the year-end palace banquet, I attended as Prince Yong's secondary consort. Facing probing challenges from various factions, I parried every thrust with composure and dignity, earning considerable praise from numerous noblewomen. Midway through festivities, the emperor summoned Huo Jingshan for consultations. Finding the hall stifling, I went alone to the imperial garden for air, only to encounter by misfortune's design the Prime Minister's daughter, Lin Wana. Well, if it isn't secondary consort Shen. Lin Wana waved her fan, voice dripping mockery. I hear the Shen family has utterly collapsed, yet secondary consort sits secure and untroubled. Such resolve and methods truly command admiration. I smiled faintly, unwilling to engage. Miss Lin flatters me. But Lin Wana wouldn't relent, stepping closer and lowering her voice. Don't celebrate prematurely. Prince Yong harbors someone in his heart. You'll forever remain a pitiful substitute. My heart clenched. Though my face remained impassive, Miss Lin jests. Whether His Highness holds anyone in his heart, what concern is it of yours? Jesting, Lin Wana scoffed. Do you know whose portrait Prince Yong keeps hidden in his study? The very woman he has cherished for 10 full years. She leaned toward my ear, enunciating with malicious satisfaction. The late Grand Tutor's daughter, Su Qingwan, had the Su family not been implicated in treason and executed to the last member, would the princess consort's position ever have fallen to a nobody like you? Su Qingwan, that name exploded like thunder in my mind. So it was her. The girl who'd set the capital ablaze at 15, with her mastery of music, chess, calligraphy, and painting acclaimed as first talent of the realm. When the Su family fell, she'd been merely 16. Rumor claimed she'd long since perished. No wonder Huo Jingshan had delayed marriage all these years. No wonder he mourned nightly before that portrait. I returned to the banquet in a daze. Huo Jingshan had already come back, conversing quietly with the emperor. He'd drunk more than usual tonight, eyes slightly reddened, lacking his usual severity, possessing instead a languid intoxication. On the return journey, he closed his eyes, resting. I watched his handsome profile, heart feeling stuffed with cotton. After long hesitation, I couldn't restrain myself. Your Highness, what manner of person was Su Qingwan? Huo Jingshan's eyes snapped open abruptly, his previously hazy gaze instantly sharpened like a blade. Who told you? Does it matter? I met his stare, voice trembling slightly. Did your Highness marry me because I resemble her in certain ways? Nonsense. Huo Jingshan frowned, looking away. Then why does your Highness keep her portrait? Why maintain an empty principal consort position all these years? My heart ached as I pressed forward step by step. Are you waiting for her return? But hasn't she already? Silence. Huo Jingshan's stern rebuke, eyes holding fury I'd never witnessed. The carriage fell deathly silent, even breathing audible. After an eternity, Huo Jingshan drew a deep breath, voice gravelly with strain. She isn't dead. I froze. When the Siu family was falsely accused of treason and executed, this prince risked death to secretly save her and send her from the capital to safety. Huo Jingshan massaged his temples, voice carrying profound exhaustion. All these years, this prince has been covertly gathering evidence to clear the Siu family name. Once vindicated, she can return openly. So, I heard my own voice trembling like a leaf in wind. Your Highness has kept the principal consort position vacant, waiting for her. Huo Jingshan didn't respond, but that mountain-heavy silence was answer enough. My heart sank slowly into icy depths. I see all the consideration, all the guidance, even those seemingly tender moments, merely because I was useful, merely because I temporarily occupied his beloved's place. Your Highness can rest assured. I inhaled deeply, forcing my voice to sound calm. When Miss Su returns, this consort will voluntarily yield her position, absolutely without entanglement. Huo Jingshan's head whipped toward me, complex emotions roiling in his eyes. Murao, your Highness needn't explain. I interrupted him, smiling bitterly. This consort understands her place. After that night, Huo Jingshan and I fell into Cold War. No, perhaps not Cold War, merely reverting to our initial formal distance. When spring arrived, the frontier erupted in crisis, beacon fires blazing. Huo Jingshan received orders to lead the campaign. The night before departure, he came to my chambers, placing a heavy black iron command token in my hands. This is the highest command for the manor's shadow guards. The token represents my authority. Should emergencies arise, use this to mobilize all shadow guards. I accepted the token, palm cold. Your Highness can rest easy. This consort will guard the manor in your stead. He studied me deeply, lips parting as if holding 1,000 words, ultimately condensing to 2. Take care. 3 months after Huo Jingshan's departure, the capital's situation shifted dramatically. The Prime Minister's faction, exploiting Prince Yong's frontier absence, allied with several ambitious princes to launch a palace coup. Rebel forces surrounded the palace like a tide, flames lighting the capital sky in chaos. I acted decisively, ordering the manor gates sealed tight, assembling all household troops and shadow guards to defend to the death. Not even a fly could enter. The rebels knew Prince Yong's household was a hard nut to crack. Unable to breach it, they turned to besieging what remained of my natal home, though. The Shen family had fallen. The manor still stood. The steward came rushing through a rain of arrows, reporting urgently. Terrible news. The rebels have captured Second Miss Shen and are demanding at the battle line that you open the gates in exchange. Shen Qingguan. After I brought her back from the estate to the Shen manor, she'd remained half mad, confined to a side courtyard to fend for herself. Ignore them. My voice was cold as iron, heart hardened. Rebel words cannot be trusted. Open those gates and everyone in this manor dies. But the steward was drenched in sweat, hesitating. They're also saying if you refuse, they'll execute Second Miss Shen by slow slicing before the entire city's populace. As a warning, I clenched my fists, knuckles white. Though I loathed Shen Qingguan to my marrow, wished to devour her flesh and sleep on her hide. Subjecting her to such extreme torture, publicly no less. My lady, you mustn't soften. The wet nurse kowtowed until her head bled. This is the rebels' trap. Once you open those gates, the consequences are unthinkable. I closed my eyes, drawing a deep breath of smoke-laden air. Yes, this was a trap, but if I truly let her die unsaved, how would I differ from Shen Qingguan and Wang's ilk? Ready my horse. I stood abruptly, eyes flashing coldly. I'll go personally. My lady, no. Everyone dropped to their knees, wails shaking the heavens. Say no more. I efficiently donned soft armor, fastening my cloak. Iron, I entrust to you all. Protect him at all costs. If I don't return, when His Highness returns, tell him I was worthy of the Princess Yong title, brought him no shame. Below the city gates, flames soared skyward. Shen Qingguan was bound to crude wooden scaffolding, blood-soaked, barely breathing. Seeing me approach on horseback, her clouded eyes suddenly cleared momentarily, lips moving hoarsely. Shen Morao, you finally came. The rebel leader threw his head back, laughing maniacally. Prince Yong's secondary consort proves truly noble and righteous. But do you think you alone can save her? He waved grandly. Rebels surged toward me like a black tide. I gripped my sword, about to fight to the death, when suddenly an arrow pierced through the air with devastating force, straight through the rebel leader's throat. Immediately after, the earth trembled. Hoofbeats thundered like rolling drums. Black armored troops poured in from all directions, banners blotting out the sun, leading them silver armor, white horse, descending like a war god. It was Huo Jingshan. The prince has returned. The regent prince returns to protect the capital. Deafening cheers erupted from the city walls. Huo Jingshan charged forward, spear dancing like a dragon, cutting through enemy lines invincibly. Rebel forces instantly collapsed, scattering in flight. He rode straight to me, yanking me onto his horse, imprisoning me tightly in his embrace, voice actually trembling. Who authorized you to come? Have you no regard for your life? I stared dazedly at his strong jawline, somewhat unable to process. Wasn't your highness still at the frontier? Upon receiving intelligence from the capital, this prince rode day and night, exhausting 3 horses to return in time. His arm tightened painfully. Had anything happened to you? His words cut off as an arrow suddenly shot from an angle. Careful, I cried out, instinctively moving to shield him. Whoa! Jingshan reacted with lightning speed, deflecting it with his sword, yet stray shots still grazed his arm. Blood instantly stained the silver armor crimson. Your Highness, minor scratch, a flesh wound. He bore the pain gaze, sweeping the chaotic battlefield, before suddenly freezing, pupils violently contracting. Following his line of sight, I saw a white-robed woman standing amid distant ruins, staring blankly at us. Though veiled, those eyes clear as water, I could never forget those eyes from the portrait. It was Su Qingwan. Whoa! Jingshan's entire body jerked, momentarily forgetting all movement. Rebel remnants seized the opportunity to counterattack. A poisoned arrow flew straight towards Su Qingwan's heart. Qingwan. Guo Jingshan's eyes split with anguish, desperate to charge forward, but entangled by several rebel death warriors. In that split second, my mind went blank, yet my body moved faster than reason. I leapt from the horse, throwing myself at Su Qingwan, shielding her beneath me. Thunk, the sound of arrow piercing flesh, clear enough to set teeth on edge. Searing pain radiated from my back. My vision went black. The world began spinning. Murao. Before losing consciousness, I heard Huo Jingshan's soul-tearing roar, carrying unprecedented panic and terror. When I next woke, I'd returned to the manor's familiar bedchamber. Me back wound had been properly dressed, though the pain drilled deep. Clearly it wasn't fatal. Huo Jingshan kept vigil beside the bed. Stubble wild, dark circles beneath his eyes. Seeing me wake, he seized my hand, voice shaking. You are awake, Imperial physicians. Summon the Imperial physicians quickly. Your Highness. My voice emerged weak, throat parched. Miss Su, how is she? She is fine, completely unharmed. Huo Jingshan's voice was raw, carrying profound fear and reproach. Why did you save her? Don't you know that arrow was poisoned? You nearly died. I managed a pale smile, because she is someone your Highness cares for. This consort promised to guard the manor, and also guard everything your Highness treasures. This consort fulfilled that promise. Huo Jingshan stared at me fixedly, emotions churning in his eyes, seeming regret, seeming tenderness. After an eternity, he lowered his head, forehead against the back of my hand, murmuring, Fool, what an utter fool. After the palace coup was quelled, Huo Jingshan was elevated to regent prince for his meritorious rescue, wielding power that commanded the court. Their Su family's wrongful conviction was also overturned. Su Qingwan regained her status, returning to the capital's social circles. The Empress Dowager specifically summoned me to the palace, grasping my hand with a sigh. Murao, you've been wronged. I understood her meaning. Know that the rightful Su Qingwan had returned. I, the substitute who'd existed only for Ayan's sake, should tactfully make way. This consort feels no grievance, I answered calmly. Receiving your Highness's protection all this time has been fortune enough. I dare not presume further. You dear child. The Empress Dowager shook her head, turbid eyes full of pity. Jingshan may seem shrewd about everything, but he is a complete muddle when it comes to matters of the heart. Though this time he has done one thing sensibly. I didn't grasp her meaning. Returning to the manor, the steward respectfully presented an envelope. A divorce agreement. The calligraphy was bold and powerful, Huo Jingshan's own hand. Shen Murao possesses proper conduct, virtue and capability, yet marital affinity proves shallow. Hereby we divorce amicably. The manor's western villa plus 1,000 mu of quality farmland shall belong entirely to Shen. The heir Huoyan shall likewise be raised by Shen. He was granting me freedom and giving me everything needed to establish security and live comfortably for life. I clutched that thin divorce agreement, emotions in turmoil, eyes misting. Very well. This is well. 3 days later, I took Ayan and moved from Prince's Manor into that exquisite western residence. Huo Jingshan didn't come to see us off, merely sending endless boxes of valuables enough for several lifetimes of luxury. Life seemed to circle back to its starting point. Only this time, I was no longer the Shen family's cast-off daughter, prey to any abuse. I had wealth, influence with the Empress Dowager and Regent Prince's covert protection, and my son. This life was sufficient, until that day when Su Qingwan came calling. She was lovelier than her portrait, clad entirely in white, ethereally beautiful as Chang'e in the moon. Elder sister Shen, I've come to express gratitude. She bowed gracefully, posture elegant. Had you not risked your life to save me that day, Qingwan would no longer be among the living. Miss Su needn't be so formal. I invited her to sit, polite yet distant. His Highness arrived timely as well. I merely acted on impulse. Su Qingwan shook her head, gaze limpid. Brother Jingshan's saving me was duty-sibling affection. Your saving me was kindness, chivalrous spirit. She paused, then suddenly shifted topics. Elder sister, do you know why I returned during the capital's most dangerous moment? I shook my head, bewildered. Because I wanted to see what extraordinary woman Brother Jingshan had married. Su Qingwan smiled faintly. All these years, though, his letters to me never spoke of longing. He frequently mentioned you. He said you were exceptionally intelligent, said you were remarkably resilient, said you managed the manor impeccably, said he greatly admired you. I froze, heartbeat skipping. Elder sister may not know, after the Su family was vindicated, Brother Jingshan came to find me immediately. Tears welled in Su Qingwan's eyes, yet they were tears of release. He said he owed me an explanation, owed the Su family a debt, but his heart had already admitted another, with no room for anyone else. He said she was a foolish woman. Though she could have preserved herself safely, she constantly risked herself for others. Though she could have leveraged favor arrogantly, she always swallowed grievances. Though he'd wounded her heart, she still risked her life to save his cherished former companion. Su Qingwan gripped my hands tightly, palms warm. Elder sister Shen, the person in Brother Jingshan's heart has always been you. My mind went utterly blank, as if struck by tremendous joy. Then why? Because he felt he owed me. Su Qingwan smiled bitterly. Before the Su family was vindicated, he couldn't offer me status out of guilt. He'd promised me the principal consort position. Now he has fulfilled that vow, yet his heart has changed. He is a man of his word, so even loving you, he hesitated to reveal his feelings, fearing to break faith. That divorce agreement is both release and a desperate gambit for a fresh start. Su Qingwan said gently. Elder sister, give him a chance. Give yourself a chance as well, won't you? After Su Qingwan departed, I sat beneath the courtyard's crabapple tree for ages, until Ayan came running breathlessly with a letter. Mother, father sent someone with this. My hands trembled as I unfolded the paper. It contained only a few sparse words. Morale, if you are willing, 3rd day of the 3rd month, beneath the peach tree at Yongning Temple. I'll wait for you. If you don't come, I'll understand your answer and never disturb you again. Signed, Huo Jingshan, 3rd day of the 3rd month. Yongning Temple. Spring breeze, gentle, peach blossoms blazing. I stood before that gap in the wall I'd once crawled through, momentarily feeling as if lifetimes had passed. Mother, where are we going? Ayan asked, tilting his head up. To see someone, I took his small hand, lips involuntarily curving upward. Samon, very important. Behind the temple, on the hillside, peach blossoms bloomed like rosy clouds. Huo Jingshan stood beneath the largest, oldest tree, wearing blue scholar's robes rather than his usual authoritative court attire, appearing gentler, more refined. Hearing footsteps, he spun around sharply. The instant he saw me, his eyes blazed with startling brilliance. He strode quickly toward me. You came, I came. Our gazes locked. 1,000 words, all conveyed without speech. Miss Su told me everything. I said softly, eyes reddening slightly. Huo Jingshan grasped my hand with almost bruising force, as if to merge me into his very bones. Morale, forgive me. I was too obtuse, too self-righteous. I wounded your heart. That portrait, already burned. He looked at me earnestly, gaze unwavering. Henceforth, only you reside in my heart, no one else. Tears finally spilled from my eyes. What about the principal consort position? It was always yours. He produced a roll of bright yellow imperial edict from his breast. My imperial brother has decreed you regent princess consort, formally installing Aeon as heir. No one in this realm dare slight you mother and son again. I accepted the edict in a daze, feeling its weight. And this, he retrieved a warm white jade hairpin, that very one witnessing everything those years ago. This time, I won't lose you again. He gently, tenderly inserted the hairpin into my hair, leaning close to whisper in my ear. Warm breath caressing. Shen Mirao, are you willing to walk hand in hand through this life with me until our hair turns white? I gazed at the man before me. This man once unreactionably distant. Now within reach, eyes filled entirely with me. Recalling the arduous journey here, the blood and tears of my previous life, this life's calculated steps. Ultimately, all grievances and passions transformed into a relieved smile at my lips. I am willing. Amid swirling peach blossoms, we embraced tightly. In the distance, Ayan chased butterflies beneath peach trees, laughter clear and bright as bells. Sunlight perfect breeze. Just right. Years stretching long ahead. This life, we could finally live openly beneath the sun, properly and lovingly. In love's name, with years as witness.